Today's the day. It's NFL Draft Day, and the Chicago Bears have some big decisions looming with the NFL Draft. On today's episode, we're going to talk about some of the stuff between the insiders, asking if the Bears are going to go edge rusher or offensive tackle. And also, Tyson Bagent trade buzz is starting to pop up again. Could we see him being traded during the NFL Draft? We're going to talk about all those things, plus a major update to the Bears' next stadium. All that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And what are the Chicago Bears doing in the NFL Draft, right? That is the question that a lot of people have for it. It's been a lot of kind of rumblings here recently over the legitimacy of the Chicago Bears potentially taking an offensive tackle in round one. I said on yesterday's episode, part of my personal thoughts is that Ryan Poles or whoever could be putting out those fillers to actually kind of throw people off the scent of what the Chicago Bears are actually going to do in the first round. But it is starting to be a debate now. It's not even safety, which could exactly be what Ryan Poles wants, right? Is that nobody's really right now talking the Chicago Bears taking safety in the draft is all turned into, is it going to be an edge or is it going to be offensive tackle, right? So there have been reports. This all started with Courtney Cronin, who said that it's not outside the realm of possibility for the Bears to go offensive tackle in round one of the NFL draft. This all comes down to Ozzy Trapilo's injury, right? We all know that at this point. That is a big thing down when it comes down here. And I don't know how Bears fans will legitimately react. I've been worried about how the Bears fans will react if we take a safety over an edge. Going offensive tackle, I just wonder if Bears fans will initially react in the sense that it's like, all right, we're doing more for the offense again, but what about the defense? But like I said before, Bears and no team should be drafting for fan reaction. They should be drafting for what's best for the team and how they feel the draft board is going to go, right? But for what it's worth, Dan Grizzanio said this. There's a late round zone loaded with teams that would love to come out of Thursday's night with a new offensive lineman, including the Lions, Panthers, Steelers, Chargers, Eagles, Browns, Bears, 49ers, Chiefs, and Patriots. Kansas City could even use its number 9 pick on an offensive tackle, and no one would be surprised. So, it's this weird dynamic right now because I do think this is the posturing stage of the NFL draft, right? Because to me, this is how I look at it. If the Bears, which we talked about on yesterday's episode, are truly considering trading down, right? If that's what they're considering, I'm not saying they are, but if they really are considering trading down, what better way to add value to anybody who's calling you than for teams to think you yourself want an offensive tackle, right? So they're offensive linemen. So, between that, the rumor of quarterbacks of Ty Simpson and stuff like that, like the Bears could be in a position where they could be in a prime position to trade back only a few spots, but pick up an asset because teams are looking to leapfrog because there are a lot of teams that are going to be looking at offensive linemen late in the first round. So I think this is what it comes down to is we know the Bears and the needs they have on the defensive side of the ball. We know the starting positions that the Bears still have left on the defensive side of the ball. So it really just comes down to, outside the box, right? What else is going on here? We have huge needs on this team. There's just no way around that. Nobody's gonna I think really discuss anything else. There are absolutely huge names on huge needs for this team on the defensive side. But when you look at just how you go about that, it could put the Bears and Ryan Poles in a position that Ryan Poles likes to be in, and that's having the most options and flexibility possible. That's really what it's about coming into today's draft. I would not be surprised to see you trade back. I would not be surprised to see an aggressive trade forward. I would not, a little bit more surprised for that just because I do think this is going to be a draft where not a lot of teams are going to be looking to trade back like in some other drafts, before picks, maybe the top 10, maybe the top 12 like that. But, we'll see what's happening. It's a fluid situation. In every draft, there are always a handful of completely unexpected things that happen between it being reaches, between trades that people didn't expect. And the Bears just are sitting in a position where they can let the draft board speak to them. And they can let the tone around the draft board really speak to them based on whatever is happening. And so I don't want to say I'm not saying being a reactive place, but more so being in a position of power to where you can be in a posturing place, right? Where you can be in a place to where You can do whatever best suits your needs, best suits what you feel this team needs the best, and come out of that with maybe a steal. And so I think that's what we're going to see here from the Chicago Bears. I will not be surprised at all by any stretch of the imagination if we see something unexpected, a couple things unexpected with what happens in the first round for the Chicago Bears. And yeah, by that I do mean a couple of unexpected things that can happen here on day one of the NFL draft. It's going to be a very long day. The Bears don't pick till 25th. So unless the trade gets announced early, if there even is one, we're going to be waiting a long time after the draft starts to see exactly what the Bears do. But I tell you what, I'm excited about it. I think it's smart. I think what the Bears have going for themselves is really good right now. We just got to see what's going to come out of it. But with those huge needs, right, coming into today's draft, the Bears have a couple of needs, right? Defensive linemen, both tackle and edge is a need. Safety is a need, right? That's an absolute need for this team. Linebacker, I do put higher up there on the priority list because I do think there's some really good linebackers that can go in like rounds 3 in this one. But you can also put wide receiver potentially on the list for the Chicago Bears, cornerback on the list for the Chicago Bears with Tyreek Stevenson and stuff and the questions that are going forward with him, Terrell Smith's injury. But a lot of people are still focused on the Bears with the edge need and of course now the tackle need that's popped up. That's now such a big part of the conversation when it comes down to that. Albert Breer did say this in regards to the Chicago Bears. You guys know I like Albert Breer. I like the way that he reports on the team. I like that he shoots it pretty fair. He says this: since acquiring Montez Sweat 3 years ago, Chicago has been looking for his bookend with the sorts of big long ends that Dennis Allen likes, with Keldrick Falk, Missouri Zion Young, and possibly available. This could be the year they find one. Left tackle is another spot to keep an eye on. The team really liked Ozzy Trapilo as a rookie, but he tore his patellar tendon, throwing his future into flux and making his ability to play in 2026 uncertain. And pushing the team to bring back Braxton Jones for another run and take a flyer on the former first-rounder in Jedrick Willis, we haven't talked a lot about as well, for another so given that GM Ryan Poles and head coach Ben Johnson typically value, it'll hardly be a shock for the Bears to pick another potential long-term answer at the position. So what Albert Breer is basically saying here is that don't be surprised when the Bears do go offensive tackle again. And it's just part of the conversation, but I do think that we can't overlook how big of a need edge is, right? But like I've said in a few episodes now over the last week, is that there are going to be some really damn good edges in round 2. There are some really good edges in round 2, right? But even with edge being arguably the Chicago Bears' biggest need, it does take a note that we know that it's the best player available mentality. And that's what really opens it up so much for the Chicago Bears. Like, we know that there's fits in Zion Young, Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker, right? Malachi. Those are guys that we've all talked about. And pass rush still for a lot of people is going to matter the most when you look at playoff football, right? And you look at especially what kind of told and dictated a lot of playoff matchups last year, it was the trenches. And it always has been really the trenches, right? And that's on the offensive side of the line, the defensive side of the line, right? Teams that could not stop other teams' pass rush, it got blown up. And you also got to have point of attack to stop the run game. Like, these are two very important things. The Bears last season did a lot of work to improve the offensive line. Now, that took a hit a bit this year with, of course, Drew Dahlman unexpectedly retiring. Ozzy Trapilo's injury took another hit to that offensive line. That by the end of the season last year, the offensive line not only was a strength for the Chicago Bears, but to me, it was one of the best offensive lines in football, right? Like, we kept Caleb Williams' jersey clean way much more than we did in his rookie year. And you need that pass rush on the defensive side of the ball if you really want to. It's become such a determining factor in a lot of these games, is that how much consistent pressure can your defensive line get in the backfield. And that's not just in the run game. In pass game, that's also run blitzing, stopping the run early. Those are two areas where the Bears were their weakest at last season. We had a terrible run defense. We only had 35 sacks, 10 of those coming from Montez Sweat. You just can't ignore that. But then the best player mentality aspect of it does play a part into that, right? Is that if Poles sticks with the best player available mentality, you add really good talent and you have to figure it out later, but it can leave you in a spot to where, it could cause some angst from Bears fans, because the positions that we know that we need and that we know that we need very strongly and heavily may not get addressed as early as we would like them to, which then causes some doubt, right? This is a draft where how Ryan Poles maneuvers this draft is going to be so interesting to watch how it plays out for the Chicago Bears, because it does change a lot for this team, how we go through this draft, right? So do we trade up in some spots, right? And about trade up, I'm not even just talking about in the first round. Do we trade up aggressively in rounds 3 or 2 or 3 or something like that, right? Do we do something like that? How do we maneuver it? And we're going to start seeing the machinations of that today, but it all starts with that 25th overall pick. What do the Bears do there? There's odds of what the Bears can do, what position they can go at. We talked about it yesterday. There's a lot of different positions like that. But when you look at that for the Bears, I'll say this, right? Offensive tackle right now, unless there is more internal questions about Ozzy Trapilo getting back on the football field and how good he's going to be even when he is healthy. And I mean, outside of just this season, I just don't know if tackle is the best use of assets when you did bring in Jedrick Willis as well, who we already know what he's been when he's been healthy. But then again, you were able to sign him on a 1-year deal because of a reason. So when you look at the needs for the Chicago Bears this year in the draft, edge rusher is undoubtedly number one. I think everybody's gonna agree with that. Finding a consistent edge rusher is hugely important. Then who do you have at number 2? Personally, at number 2, I have safety. I just think that safety and defensive backs have been so important under Dennis Allen's specific scheme that you have to address the safety, and you don't have a starter. You let both of them go. So you got Kobe Bryant in here, which I really do like, but you still need another starting caliber safety on the opposite side of that. So I do have safety number 2, right, as the biggest need for the Chicago Bears, in the draft. I think safety is just a huge one because of the specific defensive play caller that we call and how he likes to use his defensive backs. Situational, it's important there. I'll put defensive tackle at number 3, right? So I'll put that a little bit behind safety. Defensive tackle at number 3 as far as the biggest needs for this team, because you need Grady Jarrett disappointing last year. You brought in Kentavious Street. You brought in Neville Gallimore. We'll see what those guys are able to bring, but there's still a big hole there. Now, your question is, do you have a guy in Shamar Turner that you feel confident in what he's going to bring? It does not sound like it, right? So I think that's why you're able to push it to 3. But, Shamar Turner, who, we have heard could still very much so have a breakout season. Ryan Poles did say that he could still have a breakout season this year, and he still put him up there with the guys of Luther Burden and Colston Loveland and stuff like that. So, we'll see. But if the confidence in Shamar Turner is really there, you may not see defensive tackle addressed as early as what some of the mocks have the Bears addressing defensive tackle, but that remains to be seen. But I put defensive tackle at number 3. At number 4, personally, I put wideout. And I put that there because I look at some of these, we talked about Dejon Stribling, right? I look at some of these wideouts that you can get in round 3, and I think they're perfectly made for the way that Ben Johnson play calls. They're perfectly made for the slot. They're perfectly made to play that kind of balance of who you mix around with Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, and even Khalif Raymond now. So I put wide receiver there, at number 4, I think is a need specifically because of the talent that's in this draft at that position at the non-premium spot, so to say. So I have that up there as well. And then I'd still say cornerback. And maybe you can flip-flop wide receiver and cornerback. And the reason why I say this is that I really think there are some starting caliber cornerbacks you're going to be able to get in round 2. The question becomes about, where Ryan Poles has that position of need on his board, because, Tyreek Stevenson hasn't been as bad as some Bears fans make him out to be, but he also hasn't been to the place where I feel that you can just say, oh yeah, you got to absolutely give Tyreek Stevenson a new contract. That hasn't been it either, right? So I think that you have to a quarterback, and it goes back to the specific needs and the scheme that Dennis Allen likes to play with his defense. You have to factor that into it as well. And so I think that you got to look at that one with him. So I think that cornerback is up there as well. And if you can find that cornerback in this draft that you had, we found starting caliber cornerbacks in later rounds as well. If you can do that, even with Zay Frazier being there, you can add that. I think you do that now. And then that way you don't have to go into the offseason even questioning if you have a disappointing season from Tyreek Stevenson, if you want to keep him or not. But it goes back to the best player mentality, right? Like Ryan Poles' view on this is different than what a lot of fans, and they should be different than fans. He has a different perspective than fans do on how the draft board, the intel that he's getting on what other teams could do is a completely different layer there. And I think that plays a part into it. But what else can play a part into it is Tyson Bagent. Oddly enough, right? When you look at this situation for the Chicago Bears, specifically, could teams around, that don't get a quarterback that they want or whatever else, could they pivot and instead trade a round 3 or round 4 pick for a Tyson Bagent, right? Now, for what it's worth, Ben Johnson was asked about the potential of trading Tyson Bagent. He said this: I love Tyson. That's one that kind of pulls at your heartstrings a little bit because he's someone that you care about so deeply, and he's a hell of a football player, and at some point you want to see him have a chance to do it himself. We'll always do what's best for our team and our organization. I do think there's a lot of merit to having a strong number 2 quarterback, which he certainly fits that bill. I'm of the mind that he's probably one of the best 32 in the NFL. His preseason tape over the last few seasons has probably confirmed that, in my opinion. But if I took myself out of the equation, I want what's best for him. And if he would like an opportunity to start, hopefully hope we can get him that somewhere. So, the Tyson Bagent part of this, which there was a lot of trade buzz around the draft combine. Ryan Poles talked about it and stuff like that around Tyson Bagent and the potential of trading Tyson Bagent, right? We even heard something so much that the Bears could get a round 3 pick. Now, I don't know if that's held true. That could have just been a rumor. The Bears aren't necessarily inclined to trade Tyson Bagent. I want to be clear there, right? But when you look at it, one of the rumored suitors for him are the Arizona Cardinals, right? They did add, Minshew to that team, right? So it comes down to it. They also are reportedly eyeing Ty Simpson in this draft. But, finding that if the Cardinals do not pivot towards that, there are other teams that could definitely look at it. Pittsburgh Steelers as well, right? They had Aaron Rodgers, and when it comes down to that, and the GM there, who was Omar Khan, said that he didn't expect the situation to drag out like it did last year. So what that could mean is that, hey, maybe they take a look at Tyson Bagent as well. Tom Pelissero as well suggested that, because of Rodgers' decision may still be weeks away, that it could lead the Pittsburgh Steelers to pivot and look towards another quarterback, and we'll see what happens in regards to that. Of course, they hired Mike McCarthy to replace Mike Tomlin as well, so we'll see what's going to happen with that one. Tyson Bagent has had 4 regular season starts. That's it, right? 149 pass attempts in the regular season as well on his resume, but it comes down to, like Ben Johnson said, what does the tape say to him, and how do other teams around the league feel about the tape? But, for the Bears that did everything that they could to try to get those compensatory picks, did not. If you do need another first-round pick, and it's more of a position, not first round, I'm sorry. If you do need another mid, pick in this draft, and Ryan Poles sees a player or a target that he feels like is can't miss or that he absolutely wants on this team, that Tyson Bagent trade chip is one that the Bears could very well cash in on, during the draft. And we'll see. I'm not calling for it because the noise around it has kind of calmed down. Just because the noise has calmed down does not mean that it's not a potential still of happening. So I do think the Steelers are a potential suitor there for Tyson Bagent. And we just got to see what teams are willing to offer and what the Bears really do want if they're looking to do that, but we'll see. Last bit of news today before we get up out of here, we do have an update to the Bears Stadium situation, and it's a good one, right? So according to WGN, the mega projects bill did pass, right? So, they did choose to advance that bill. It was a 78-32 vote on Wednesday that's going to hope to keep the Chicago Bears in state, right? So the thing there is good. What that would allow is to allow the Bears to receive a property tax freeze for up to 40 years. 40 years, right? This is on top of an annual special payment that will be negotiated by the local government as well, saying this per WGN. Half of the revenue generated from the special payment would be set aside for property tax relief. The sum would be split 60-40 between local residential homeowners and state-controlled property tax relief fund. So it's still not a done deal. And, reportedly, the state is still waiting on the Bears to make their decision. But now that this bill has passed, it comes down to, is it going to be Arlington Heights or are they going to move over to Hammond? That's it, right? That's the two options on the board here for the Chicago Bears. And it really comes down to the Bears deciding what they feel is best for them, the long-term goals, and what they ultimately hope to achieve. I said a lot that I do think that Kevin Warren was trying to, put himself in a position to put a little pressure on Illinois. I do think Indiana did that, but Indiana did come with a hell of an offer. And this offer from, Illinois now doesn't necessarily match that, but it does get them to what they originally wanted with the Arlington Heights. People forget, initially the Chicago Bears were going to fund the Arlington Heights project completely independently. Until the state wanted them to stay downtown, that's what opened up some other things. But they were always initially just looking for property tax relief. That is what they were looking for. Now they get that. So the question becomes about, will the Chicago Bears actually stay in Chicago, or are we going to see something different and the Bears actually move over to Indiana? My hope, stay in Illinois. I know I said Chicago. Stay in Illinois. I know Arlington Heights is technically further away than Hammond. Stay in Illinois. There's just something to be said about the Chicago Bears playing in Indiana that just does not sit well with my spirit. I'm not going to lie to you, but we'll see, right? But all that aside, that's going to do it for today's episode. The NFL draft is here, y'all. It's here. And I'm telling you guys right now, I would not be surprised at all if Ryan Poles is up to something crazy that may shock a lot of us. I don't know if it's good shock. I don't know if it's going to be bad shock, but it may shock a lot of us exactly what happens in round 1 today and how that sets up for days 2 and day 3 in the NFL draft. I can't wait. We're going to see what happens. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you taking offensive tackle or edge or a different position at number 25 with the rumors that came up? And then do you think that a Tyson Bagent trade could get the Bears another decent pick somewhere in this draft? Drop your thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Also, follow the channel at Shy Bears Central on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. That is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.